German election campaign so far? And the answer to that would be no, it hasn't. If you ask why that's the case, there are some aspects. First is we do have now a new, let's say, Europe-critical movement in Germany called Alternative für Deutschland, which, if it is sustainable and stays for a while, might end up being a bit something like UKIP in Britain. But so far, nobody knows whether they really have the substance to be there for a longer period. So there has been no interest by the other established parties to feed this newcomer. That was one of the reasons they'd rather not go on European issues and raise them in the election campaign.
My take for the outcome will be very much like Johannes's. She's, well, definitely will perform strongest. It then depends very much on how the small countries will, the small parties will fare, how they, talking about the small countries later, the small parties will fare and how much they will take. We might actually see even an outcome where you don't see the Liberals in Parliament and all the small ones eating up so much vote below this 5% threshold we have, that you end up with a four-party parliament and with Merkel on her own on the center right and the rest on the left. In the end, it might boil down to one or two seats where it's decided upon. So it will be very tight, and this is what she's saying all the way along. So don't really count on it. And German, sort of the big difference in what you see and sort of the outside perception of Germany and what's happening inside is this woman is not her re-election is not guaranteed. It's not sort of a given thing. And the same, and this is where I basically close, and I could talk later about Europe in more detail, the same applies to what happens the day after. All these expectations, again from the outside, are totally exaggerated. The expectation is that that the morning of the 23rd is like Christmas morning, and we wake up to a new Europe and have a basket full of gifts sitting there, and things will be changing. It's not true. Merkel is preparing for a continuation of what she did for the past 3-4 years.
Merkel has actually changed the structure of Europe. She has changed Europe from being, and the structure of German policies, which is always to pool powers in Brussels. That was the sort of the rationale of German European policy, somehow hoping that we would thus end up somewhere with a European federal state, with the parliament in Strasbourg, the government elected by the parliament in Brussels, and a second house, the Council of Ministers from the member states. And that's not going to happen because Mrs. Merkel has, with her fiscal compact, changed this core and rotten at the core Europe, the Eurozone, or as they like to call it, the Currency and Economic Union, ECU, into an intergovernmental panel. Now, at the moment, because Germany is so strong, Germany is dictating what happens in the fiscal compact. But if you get governments together, governments which are under pressure, as the governments of the other members of the fiscal compact are, this can change.
Some observers and politicians around Europe used to cling on to that there will be some sort of quantum leap towards more Eurozone integration after the German elections. I think that it started to dawn on people that may not happen, as all three of you have pointed out. But surely something must happen. It cannot be completely status quo. So in terms of particular Eurozone policy, what can we expect? Can we expect anything, any movement, for example, on banking union, on this idea of competitiveness pact or reform contracts? Will there be third Greek bailout? Under any scenario, will there be a Greek debt write-down? I mean, can we expect anything at all? Or is it just literally going to continue as if nothing has happened?
Merkel has a plan. She has an idea on how to walk forward in finally getting this crisis behind us. She has identified the key, and we all did, I mean, the key sources of instability and the sources of this imbalance in the construct of the currency. And these are certainly national budgets. These are the debt policy, it's fiscal policy, it's social policies, spending imbalances and what you take your money for. And to resolve this kind of huge disparities amongst nation states, they basically will have to benchmark somehow. They will have to commit to some kind of corridor in which they will run their fiscal and budgetary operations. And this is what she is at the moment hammering out in what she calls the parameter debate. They are deciding now, and this is mainly right now a German-French debate going on a civil service level, high civil service level. They're hammering out parameters on which they should decide, well, we should have we are in a pre-state. Let's say we have to decide to have some joint mechanisms on pension increase. How should we basically decide on how much and under what kind of mechanism these pensions should be increased? And you can't have one state going hanging his pensions on GDP increases and the other one on inflation. So probably should have some kind of equal footing there. So this is the first stage right now. The big thing behind this is do we need to how do we put that into legality? How should we make that binding? There are two ways. Either you put it forward to the Commission, and this means you seize sovereign rights and push them forward to Brussels. This is their integrational way. And the other one is you solve it intergovernmentally by treaties among nation states. And the fiscal pact was the first most important example for those intergovernmental solutions on the Eurozone level. Merkel clearly favors that path. She is not ready to seize more powers to the Brussels sphere, to the Barroso shop, because she does not think there is enough legitimization and enough control and enough public support for putting ever more controls to the Commission right now.
Thank you. And Johannes, do you want to say anything about this Raul's question about the public potential opposition, or at least the public mood with respect to more Eurozone integration? I mean, what is it? Is there, for example, a public red line which cannot be crossed?
I think there is. I think I'm always amazed that the opposition is still pursuing this idea of Eurobonds and more common responsibility for the debts of southern European countries. And I think the public would not be willing to go down this road very far. I think one of the reasons Merkel is backed so much is that she is pursuing this kind of mild German imperialism. You see, once the southern Europeans are following our model, everything will be fine.
We're already in imperial mood. I thought it's just hegemon.
It's quite interesting. I mean, the polling Open Europe has done on this, and this is fairly natural, shows that the Germans are very much in favor, German public opinion is very much in favor of a political union, as long as that means stronger central controls over budgets, taxation and spending. But whenever it involves cash, bailouts, write-downs, banking union, Eurobonds, of course, that majority is absolutely reversed. And you have a clear majority against.
Yes, I think the euro, the short-term costs of abandoning the euro will be painful. But if any nation can get over that, it's Germany. And the long-term costs of staying in this transfer union, which is bound to come, and we're already in the position where the European Central Bank is flooding the market with money. We're already in the position where basically we're trying to do a controlled inflation in order to inflate away debts. And somewhere down the line, the chickens have to come to roost, and that will hurt us, Germany, more than the southern European economies, which have been dealing with that for, as long as anyone knows. So I know I'm in a minority of a half here because I'm only a commentator. But
no, well, you got an opinion at least.
Thank you, Alan. I also think that's quite interesting, because maybe the clash is not between commitment to Europe and nationalism, the clashes between commitment to Europe and commitment to Sparpolitik, to sound money, that I think is the clash that is playing out in the German domestic debate at the moment, and it's going to be very interesting to see where the Germans land on that one.
Can I just probably add one thought, because I think this is extremely important to make the calculus proper for the German political class at least, and this is about the political importance of the currency, and this is unmeasurable, and what we see now and the kind of interest you demonstrate in this country's election, and this is happening all over Europe. This hasn't been there before. You talking about the two capitals of Europe, Frankfurt and Berlin. I mean, this is anew for Germany, and this is not quite an undangerous terrain we're navigating there. This talk of semi-hegemonialism, this is nothing Germany really aimed for. This kind of being exposed in Europe led to devastating situations in history and even to wars, having this imbalance of power and weight. So the currency has a huge political role to play in keeping the continent sort of in a mechanism jointly together. And it is a bloody duty for Germany to make it work, because it's in this naked self-interest, political self-interest, not to be isolated again as this Gulliver in the middle of the room, and having to go through probably the same currents of history we went through a couple of times. So there is a huge political lesson, a historical lesson for Germans, and I guess this is even the main driving force behind all ideas to rescue this currency. There might come a situation, and this is what I referred to earlier, in this short time frame we're talking about, and a convent we're talking about, where we think of a new construction plan for Europe, where the change in the treaties will be necessary, and that might then also be the right moment to talk about a broader reforms aspect and what Cameron has in mind. Right now, Merkel is only willing to do things below this threshold. She thinks there can be found a couple of issues which are which would please Cameron's desire to show something to the national audience here. But generally speaking, she was not really convinced by the tactics he applied to push his will through, and this analysis was even sort of backed, or was even getting stronger after the Syria experience over the past weeks. So what she thinks is unusual is that a politician in such high ranks has such a bad sense of what his people think and where his followers are. So he basically put himself in a very desperate situation, and she will not sacrifice any to help him out of it.